All right, welcome to wasmCloud Wednesday for Wednesday, November the 3rd, 2021. We're going to start with a review of some of the performance on the social media stuff we've been putting out. Jordan, you want to maybe take control? Nobody has rights to present. It's like a running joke. It's like every week. Watch Liam forget to give people permissions to present.
All right. It's okay. We forgive you.
Thanks, Jordan. Such a great community. All right, there you go.
I'm on an iPad, so I have no idea how screen sharing is going to look. So here we go. Screen, and then start. Can you see stuff? Okay. All right. So can y'all see this?
Yeah. Good job, iPad.
Okay, cool. Yeah. So no, a few things I just wanted to share, right? Ignore the downtails at the end, right? Some of that's just the day analytics. But over the last, I think this is scoped at, 4 weeks, we've had almost 500 views on our videos and almost 40 hours worth. And even though that's a red -8, right? And 11 plus subscribers. So we are getting a lot of traffic to these videos and which I thought was really cool because, I mean, we've only just started, I think, in the last week or two, ensuring like they were played, plopped on every platform at the end. So, I just wanted to show that, I mean, one of these was pretty cool. Yeah, the Google search is, accountable for 44.5% of our traffic. So, I mean, that just goes to show that Google is, and they're searching for WebAssembly, KubeCon, and these are the things. So people are finding us, what's the word? Naturally. I know there's a word for that, but organically. And I just think it's very cool to show everyone that this work that we're doing is not going unnoticed, and people are finding us, and continue to drive your coworkers and friends to the content, because the more people see it, we're seeing upticks in pretty much everything. These big upticks in the middle were KubeCon, so that's cheating. It doesn't count. But yeah, no, it's really just what I wanted to show, Liam.
Well, that's great, Jordan. I really appreciate all the stuff that you're doing. The PR team is going to chat with you about writing up a blog post each week, and they'll help you with that if you can just give them some bullet points. And getting it also linked on wasmcloud.com, which is something we probably should go back and just kind of backlink some of the key ones and call out, things that people would be interested in, like the Helm chart or whatever.
Absolutely.
But thank you so much, Jordan. I really appreciate you just consistently knocking that out. It's amazing. And Brooks, I think you want to talk a little bit about a proposal that you have today.
I did. And I just wanted to get my screen sharing right before. So something that we've had on our issues in the wasmCloud org, this is Wash, for example, but we have it on the OTP repo and our other repositories as well, is the label called Good First Issue. And, this should be something that somebody coming into wasmCloud for the first time, as long as they have maybe a basic knowledge of Rust, for example, should be able to pick up this issue and contribute for the first time. And what I really wanted to do is drive this forward so that community members can know which ones are important to us. I mean, obviously every issue that we have is important, but ones that really are fully scoped out and something that they could pick up. So the one that I created this morning, which is when I kind of had this idea, is Wash has environment variables like Wash RPC host. Like Wash RPC host, and that's how you specify the NAT server that you're using for RPC. When you launch a wasmCloud host, you can use an environment variable called wasmCloud RPC host to designate the NAT server that you want to use for like remote procedure calls. So the idea is that if we merge these together, or in Wash, instead of having its own Wash RPC host, have it use wasmCloud RPC host instead, then you could feasibly start up NATs, start up an OTP host, and then immediately start using Wash to issue or like to call actors or to issue control interface commands, things like that. But anyways, this issue is something that could be a great starting point for somebody to get into the wash code, take a look at some of the OTP host code to look at environment variables. So I wanted to kind of pioneer something or like an experimental section of the community call, which, I want to do it here for everybody who's attending and then post in Slack afterwards with, every week 1 or 2 issues that we have on our backlog that would be great for somebody who wanted to contribute for the first time or repeat contribute. And just kind of draw attention to that. And then if anybody is interested in taking it on, you can just leave a comment in the issue and say, hey, I'm going to take a look into this and try to issue a PR. As a general rule, we would want these issues to be very well scoped out. I think this one needs a little bit more description, very well scoped out so that all the information you need is in the issue. And also something that doesn't take, 20 hours of time. Once somebody as a community member, everybody's got things going on. So not taking more than an hour or 2 of free time or something like that to get in and contribute. So interested to hear any feedback on that. Going to try and go through some of our issues in the GitHub backlog for the OTP host and wash and capability providers, things like that, and see what we can do for that segment.
Yeah. Like about
Sorry. Real quick, Brooks, how many first issues do we have to do to get a sticker for our laptop?
You have to do 12, and you get a sticker.
I have been thinking about, I don't know if there's a service that will mail stickers on demand, right? We've opened up t-shirts before, and I'm happy to just have Nicole throw out a permalink, out there every month. But maybe I could, bribe my kids to mail stickers. We don't know, we even have that many. You could print off labels once a month. So Jordan, if you want, we can ship stickers to everybody. I'll ship you a box of stickers if you want.
I really like that idea, and it's just a sticker. It's not huge, but it's a fun incentive. You contribute to the repo, and you get a nice little nice cool wasmCloud.
I would, if for a contributor, I would pony up for a t-shirt. There are places that do t-shirts on demand. So Jordan, Brooks, if you want to have this written up so that close an issue, get a t-shirt or something, I'm happy to just fund that. So I'll pull up with you on Slack, and we can kind of maybe figure out a path forward there, because there are a lot of places that what we're doing with the previous t-shirt place was fine, but there are dedicated drop shippers that you can ship a couple cases of t-shirts to, and then they just kind of ship them out on demand. So I'm happy to work with you on that, and we can then promote it out and close an issue, get a t-shirt. I'm totally fine with that.
Yeah, that'd be a lot of fun.
Okay, great. Well, thank you,
Kevin.
Sorry,
Kevin, were you saying something?
Yeah, I just wanted to point out specifically about this one issue that it's one where the amount of effort is pretty low, but the impact is pretty high, because it, anything that smooths out or makes easier the developer experience is absolutely worth it. So this is one of the good ones where it won't take much work to make things better.
Thank you, Kevin. That's an awesome call out as well. Well, I think Stuart, you were next. You had something you want to talk about this week, which was a new capability provider you've just been experimenting with in your free time. Go ahead.
One, you haven't really prepared anything, but I can share. Can I share my screen? Okay. Yeah, so I was just playing around, trying to build a provider that wraps a Postgres database with a GraphQL API. Not necessarily for exposing directly to the browser, but I suppose providers and a SQL provider now as well, which is great. but I thought it might be. So I've used this thing before called PostGraphQL. I don't know if anyone's seen it, which is quite cool. PostGraphQL introspects the SQL database schema and generates a GraphQL schema, and then provides resolvers to do queries and mutations against it, and it's like relay compatible, etc. But it's written in TypeScript, and short of asking the maintainers to rewrite it in Rust, I thought, well, okay, how do I make this into a provider? So I statically linked in a Node.js runtime into a Rust provider and used the neon bindings to talk through into the Node.js runtime. Normally you use neon to go the other way. So it's really for writing native Node modules in Rust, for instance, that you can call from Node, from TypeScript or JavaScript or whatever. Oh, sorry, I shouldn't have clicked on that. The other way around. So we effectively just link the runtime in, start it up, and then use neon to talk the other way. So it does work. I've got this a pass-through actor which is just there for testing purposes. So in the I don't know if you can see all of this. Get rid of that. So we've got an HTTP server provider and this GraphQL provider and this pass-through actor. A link to the HTTP server and a link to the GraphQL provider that just has a database URL on it, and that's the only configuration it has, basically. So it knows how to get to the Postgres database, and then everything else is just done by reflection, effectively. So I've got a query here, which literally just runs a GraphQL query. Could have formatted this a bit better. So then if I do a post to the endpoint, then it returns that. It's usually quite fast. There we go. There's no data in the database to speak of, really, but it was just really cool. And then I'm not sure if this is actually going to work, because this is a GraphQL playground. One of the problems with this, so I've got two endpoints effectively, one for the GraphQL queries and one for the GraphQL playground, but I'm not using that. I'm using the built-in one, so ignore that. But it sends an introspection query, which could be bigger than a megabyte. So I'm not sure if it's actually going to use. No, it's not going to work. This is a problem we need to sort out, which I've been talking with Steve about recently, which is about what happens when you kind of send a big payload. I think that payload is just under a megabyte. Unless I've done this wrong. 8080. Let's try. It should. No. Okay. All right. Okay. Demo didn't work, but curl works. It is port 8080, isn't it? Yeah. That's working. All right. Anyway, it's there if anybody wants to have a look at it. I just did it for playing around with, really. But the interesting code is in the provider that has. So this is the provider. That's the configuration that just takes the URL, database URL, and then it calls into this GraphQL upstream, which uses neon, and it literally just sets up JavaScript functions and calls into Node, into JavaScript, and then there's a callback, which is called when the request is finished, and then it ties the two things up together on a channel, and then sends the response back. But it's quite an interesting concept, because like it's well, I mean, it possibly means that you can have providers written in Node runtime. Anyway, it's messy because it has to compile the TypeScript together. This is the query here that runs the middleware, and has to compile this TypeScript to JavaScript and then pack those files up into a temporary directory. So the files are included as part of the binary for the provider, which is a bit messy, and it unpacks them into a temporary directory so that it runs. But yeah, it does work. Anyway, for what it's worth, just playing around really.
Stuart, that's awesome, man. I've got some questions, but anyone want to start?
Sure, I'll start. First, it's fantastic. I love seeing people play with stuff like this. Was when you were doing the provider, was your intention to build like a one-off contract, or to have a generic GraphQL contract that could then be satisfied by multiple implementations?
Generic, yeah. So I didn't show you the Smithy contract, but it's literally just got, share my screen again, I'll show it to you. It's literally just got two, where is it, interface, GraphQL's provider.smithy. So it's literally just got a query. There's an operation to get the graphical playground, but I wasn't using that before. Yeah, this query, it just has a query request and a query response, and so it's completely generic, the contract. So the client makes the GraphQL query, so the actor would effectively generate a GraphQL query and submit it to the provider.
Very cool.
So it could be used against any database. So what I was going to do is include in this repo like a to-do database with some stuff in it or whatever, just as an example, and then in the Docker Compose YAML, just bring that up as part of the demo, basically. But yeah, it's what the thing I've got to get. The database I'm using at the moment is a client's database, and it's quite a big thing. It's got the schema is quite big, and that is like on the limit of pushing the 1 meg message limit on that. So I know that can be up to 8 meg, and then even further to 64 meg. But I think there is still an outstanding problem with sending large payloads through, which I haven't got to the bottom of yet. But I'm using this to try and sort of flush those out. If there is a problem, flush it out.
Yeah, one of the potential future features that we've talked about is the notion of chunked invocations. So one potential solution to this would be so that when the host runtime sends invocations and receives invocation responses, it does so in chunkable or chunked fashion, so that it can inspect the original payload, and then if necessary split it into a number of micro requests, and then have the other side collect them and reassemble the payload into the larger one.
Yeah, I think that would be amazing, because quite often, like a web page, for instance, if it's got like assets embedded in it or whatever, can easily go over a 1 meg thing, and it'd be nice not to have to run on a NATS infrastructure with large message size configured.
Well,
So that'd be amazing.
I think even if you set the message size higher than 1 meg, I think NATS actually has a hard upper limit of 2 megs, right? You can't go higher than that.
I think it might be 64, but yeah, I mean, either way, you probably don't want to have to run on a specially tuned NATS infrastructure for large messages. It'd be much, and then you can stream video over it and all sorts of things. which would be great. This, you know, I'm more than happy to transfer this repo over if at any point it's seen, you know, it's deemed useful, or to move the contents of it into providers repo or whatever, wherever, you know, a little bit more work, but anyway.
I think when we work through some of these issues and we get it stable and we feel like this is something that is generally usable, then absolutely, you know, this should, yeah, I mean, all the things, you know, Stuart, are welcome. And then we can get it published. I think we haven't really ever talked through the sort of like, what do we publish as official, but I am inclined to think that, you know, we would want to pull in as many things as possible. But we can have a sidebar on that on Slack or whatever the case would be, especially when it adds a lot of interesting utility like this does. This is just...
I mean, the good thing about it is that it is completely generic. So there's no, apart from your database connections, you know, the database URL, there's no additional configuration. I mean, there could be, because you can tune PostGraphQL to do different things, but, you know, it does work out of the box without it. So. Cool.
Any other questions? Any other questions for Stuart? Okay. Just turning over to a couple things. We obviously had a very successful KubeCon the week before last. A lot of good feedback and discussions and discovery of large users out in the world that are doing amazing things with wasmCloud. We're going to continue to encourage those people to share their demos and use cases as we work through them. Planning is already underway for KubeCon EU, which will be in Valencia, Spain next year, as well as another WASM Day event that's put on by the CNCF. So no details on that yet, but we're just planning an early, you know, workshop or something along those lines sometime before Valencia, because there's a large demand for it. And it looks like there will be a WebAssembly event for US government people in Washington, DC in the near future. Early stages on planning on that as well for a WebAssembly wasmCloud focused event. But otherwise, I will keep anyone abreast. Any other community issues to share or notes? Steve, anything? I think roadmap wise, we don't have anything to share this week, but we'll try to have it pulled together for next week. So I think if there's nothing else, just open floor. Is there anything else anyone would want to bring up and share today? All right, I'll go ahead and stop recording and we can hang out like usual. Cheers.